Not all of us have the diversity of healthy bacteria in our guts to create a strong enough immune system to protect us from the exposure to parasites and bacteria in sushi that many of us eat. Episode 14, Sushi. To eat or not to eat, that is the question. How to reduce your risk of heavy metal toxicity and parasites. Hey everybody, welcome back to Dr. Ashley, your go-to channel for everyday holistic health for the times we live in, also known as Ecomedicine. Consider hitting the subscribe button to stay updated on the latest health tips. I am sometimes afraid to discuss this next topic because so many people love sushi. Unfortunately, sushi has become so widespread and eaten so regularly that it is easy to ignore the issues that come with eating it. For one thing, it is an easy way to get a dose of heavy metals. Often the fish aren't even the species they claim, as fish are relabeled in the transport process, and no one knows for sure exactly what you are getting. And sadly, for many of us, the immune systems and many of our digestive systems cannot tolerate all the raw fish. Not all of us have the diversity of healthy bacteria in our guts to create a strong enough immune system to protect us from the exposure to parasites and bacteria in sushi that many of us eat. It used to be very nutritious to eat fish and seafood when it could all be caught locally and the levels of toxins like mercury weren't that high. In fact, it was good for the heart. But now, with rising levels of overfishing, heavy metals, and contamination, we just cannot eat as much as we were. I like to joke that if you are a regular eater of raw fish, it is quite possible you are giving yourself a dose of parasites and mercury. I like to use a level of 4 as a cutoff for mercury levels measured in red blood cells. Yet most regular sushi eaters I see have levels well over 4. I've even seen a few with levels over 40. Yikes. This can also be just from eating regular cooked fish, like tuna, swordfish, sea bass, snapper, grouper, and orange roughy, unfortunately. And it is not easy to get mercury out of the body. So why add more if you now know that this can be avoided? Mercury can affect health on every level for men and women, including hormones, it can weaken the immune system, it's toxic to the nervous system, and the list goes on. You might ask about getting enough omegas if you start to reduce the amount of fish and seafood in your diet in tiny amounts, and you would be right to be concerned. And you do need to be taking omegas regularly, either in plant-based form, which are called parent essential oils, or fish-based, but those would be made with very tiny fish that have no mercury, like sardines and anchovies, and are then filtered and third-party tested to make sure there are no heavy metals. I realize it sounds ironic to be taking high-quality omegas in order to eat less fish, and it is. But it is the difference of eating more toxic and contaminated food or not. You might then ask about jumping to seafood. Generally, other than lobster, seafood is at least lower in mercury levels. I will say this about seafood. 85% is imported from other countries, and many farming practices for foods like shrimp and crab are not clean. As an example, pig manure is used in shrimp farming regularly, along with high doses of pesticides and other toxins. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but it is what it is. So this means that you might need to eat less seafood, and only when it comes from a good local source. For all of those now sad about sushi, I'm sorry. But here are my tips. Number 1, if you are out with friends at a sushi place, go for the cooked crab and shrimp if it's from Canada or US, and scallops. Salmon should be cooked in from US or Pacific Canadian waters, and eat lots of seaweed and veggie appetizers to fill yourself up so that you eat less fish. Number 2, I just want to match up the recommendations for sustainable eating of fish and seafood with the ones with the lowest mercury levels. Unfortunately, it leaves us with only the following to eat on occasion, and This information can change yearly, so this is just for right now. But sole from the USA, trout, which is rainbow and steelhead from the US, shrimp that is US or Canadian farmed, scallops, clams, and mussels are generally okay. Salmon from New Zealand, Canadian Pacific waters and US waters, Canadian and US crab, and Arctic char. That's about it. That doesn't leave us with many choices, but since this video is about cutting down on fish and seafood, I feel it is good to know how limited the options have become when you are looking at sustainability, good farming and fishing practices, and levels of mercury. Now, I do want to say I'm hopeful for the future. We are starting to have organic sea vegetable farming, and I think there's potential for fish farming that's sustainable for the planet and safe and healthy. This is Dr. Ashley. Thank you for joining me for another episode, and don't forget to subscribe. If you are upset at the thought of not eating sushi, just skip over this video and watch my video on nutrition. I hope this information has been informative and have you feeling more determined to at least start thinking about how you might cut down on certain kinds of seafood and fish. What alternatives are you thinking about?